Fellow Toastmasters, is Fall Education Week, and it's also fall leaf season. So if any of you would like to combine the two and learn about raking leaves, come over and see me. I can help you a lot with that. But more sensibly, today we're going to hear from two superb distinguished Toastmasters, Trent Deckard and John Peterson. Both are from Bloomington clubs. Both have distinguished Toastmaster status, and both have done something at which many have tried and few have succeeded. That's right. They have been successful club coaches. This is an important step in your Toastmaster path. It is one that I envy highly because I want to do it. So I'm going to listen carefully to John and Trent with whatever they've got to say. And on a personal note, they're also both terrific individuals. I'm sure you will enjoy the session. Now, one slight piece of business, which I'm sure Scott would reprimand me if I did not mention, this counts as club officer training. If you haven't already mentioned your club officer status in chat, enter your name, your club, and your office, and you will be, as if by magic, trained. And with that, I'd like to introduce John Peterson and Trent Deckard, who, as I say, have done something wonderful. Over to you guys.
Thank you for that introduction, Mark Walton, our club growth director in the district. And Trent and I are privileged and honored to be here this morning, actually, wherever you might be around the world, knowing that now we're on Zoom. And I will share briefly a PowerPoint that we put together just to show that we put some effort into this here session this morning. It's going to specifically talk about club coaching and our experiences on club coaching as club coaches. And then I'm going to talk to you about our objectives, our logistics, our experiences. So without further ado, let's get on here and talk to you specifically about the objectives. Hopefully there might be one or two in the audience that might want to become a club coach. Hopefully our talk today would motivate you to do that or inspire you to do that. And as Mark has already mentioned, maybe he would be that person to share our experiences as club coaches and to stimulate some group discussion. And now the coaching logistics, there's three logistics that I just want to go over briefly with you. Is a formal request from a club is required to be a coach. And I'm going to tell you that as a club coach in 2015 and 2020, it's not putting your name forward as a club coach candidate as much as it is the club itself putting a formal request in, and then the district club growth director or the district director, him or herself, would assign a club coach to that club. So there's a real formal process and signing of a contract. In fact, in 2015, I was attending one of these sessions. It was a spring educational conference. And lo and behold, a club from Bloomington asked for a club coach. And either the club growth director at that time or the district director said, John, you're online to becoming a DTM, and it's a requirement that to get a DTM, I would need to be a club coach. Well, my aspiration after being with Toastmasters for so long was to become a DTM. So I said, oh, I'll accept that assignment. And lo and behold, my first assignment in 2015 was to become a club coach of the Good Evening Toastmasters in Bloomington. I didn't know what I was signing up for, but I'll share that experience as we move along in this presentation. Then in 2020, because I'm in the Pathways program now, and that formerly I was in the legacy program, I said, well, I want to become a DTM again in that new program. And so all of a sudden I connected with the Kelley School of Business, and I said, I didn't want to do this alone. And so I incorporated or recruited Trent to be a part of that experience, in which he's going to talk to you about that in a few minutes. But one thing that I wasn't clear for was the goal. And that became very clear in April of 2000, I believe it was 2016, getting near to the end, that you had to be a distinguished club. And one of those assignments was to grow in your membership to either 20 active members or a net growth of 5. Now, one of the things about a club coaching is that a club cannot have more than 12 active members. So it's got to be struggling in some respects. And the Bloomington Good Evening Club was struggling with only 8 members. So I needed to get to 13. In 2020, the Kelley School of Business Club was struggling with 9 members, and they needed to get to 14. So that goal became very clear to me, that we had to grow membership. Now, the other way of becoming a distinguished club in regards to what you need is either 6 educational goals, 2 points for membership goals, 1 point for club officer attending, and 1 point for your dues paid on time. That was my focus as far as becoming a distinguished club. And then lo and behold, I had to really concentrate on membership. And it wasn't until June, and a coaching assignment goes from when you start to June 30th. And I started in spring of 2015, and I was able to go until 2016 in June. So we were able to make that goal, and it didn't come with the efforts of one person in particular. It came as a team effort, and that's what I hope to share with you later on as we continue on. So with that, I'm going to turn over Trent now and let him talk about his experience, and then I'll share about mine.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate very much, John, you given the background on how this all got started. And I want to make one tiny little slight correction to the introduction which Mark Walton graciously gave to us. I've not yet achieved a DTM. I'm targeting that. I'm working towards that. But people might confuse that I have one, because I always am following closely behind John. John has mentored me through a lot of things, both as a Toastmaster and as a leader. And really, that's what we're seeking to promote and do, not only with this coaching program, but really everything that we're doing with Toastmasters. And some of the things we'll talk about today are sort of those ripple effects on the growth and personal development that really we have seen now as a result of this Kelley Club going from kind of struggling to keep going, to get started, to what they're now doing, even up to this very week that we're talking. So again, John approached me about joining with him in this, and I thought, yeah, sure, I'd love to help out. And the Kelley Club is near and dear to my heart, as some of you will know, because I teach there. I'm an instructor at the Kelley School of Business. I teach business presentations. It's a class that's required for every student that really walks through the Kelley doors, with kind of a Toastmasters mentality, that we want to make people more comfortable talking, sharing, being in community, etc. And one of the things that I observed about our process together in the time that I got to kind of observe how John led with coaching is really how he spoke and led and encouraged our coaching to go to this thing that I want to call the I just want to know factor. So many of our leaders, so many of our students, so many of our participants, our club members, they just want to know. we're in a world where a lot of communication is all over the place and we're being inundated with things, even on a Saturday morning. I'm sure you're all receiving lots of emails, lots of conversations, lots of headaches around the house. These things don't stop. And I've noticed with my students, particularly this phrase, I just want to know what I got to do for this assignment. I just want to know how to become a better speaker. I just want to know how I could be effective as a communicator, as a leader. And John's coaching, which I got a chance to watch up close and try to help and keep my hands out of the way of great work happening, really spoke to three specific areas in that I just want to know factor. First, the big thing that he did was coach among the team. I'm going to talk about that, coaching among the team, not at the team, but among the team. The second big thing was advocacy for that Toastmasters club. And then finally, really motivating them in our Toastmasters program and every rich opportunity that we have. So let me just get into these just a little bit to explain what I mean by all of this as helping with that I just want to know factor. First, John showed up and he encouraged me to show up and figure out ways that we could show up for this team. And that meant attending meetings. You know, sometimes I think we, as Toastmasters, we put that on our officers and our leaders. And now in a virtual world, we have an opportunity to go wherever we really have an opportunity to go virtually. But John encouraged that showing up factor and really showed up around the metrics that that team had to, that club needed to hit. They were students, busy students. They wanted to be better. They wanted to do a great job by Toastmasters. They wanted the growth and they wanted the community, but navigating that, knowing what everything meant. One thing John relentlessly did is he would do an email to them. Here's an update. Where are you at with this? Get back to me by this time. And at first I can remember my thought was, oh, these students, if they're anything like the ones in my class, they're not going to react well to this. They may not want to meet those goals. And then I watched as they did react extremely well. John, we're doing this. We wanted to give you an update. We wanted to let you and Trent know this. We can do this by then. We're optimistic about this new member. And slowly those things started to become metrics of real connection. And the other thing is, John was not afraid to encourage me to reach out and do the things that I could do as a faculty member, which opened a lot of doors for this club. And it was important to have that. Here's another thing John really did that I was watching and kind of in awe of: advocacy for that club. You know, I know that really the heart of Toastmasters is out here among the organizations, among what we're doing today, among what happens. And we have a remarkable staff, remarkable folks at our international headquarters. But there was a moment where the club was not quite getting what they needed to get in order to get an answer, to get a technical detail, et cetera. And John advocated up the Toastmasters chain to get that done for them. What's more, he didn't take just no for an answer or lack of response. He really pushed for that. And he showed those students who are at a real development portion of their time as leaders, he showed them that you should and can advocate for yourself to get what you need. And that was a great learning moment for them. He didn't let process beat it down or bureaucracy, but he really advocated. And I think, you know, that's no one's fault that things go wrong, but somebody's got to kind of look out for those clubs because they are doing that kind of work. And then the other thing he did, he motivated them to engage Toastmasters. You know, they have their own culture. We all do. All of our clubs do. And at times they kind of want to go this direction. And there's a little bit of that happens. If you ever visit their club, they're going to put you to work. We were joking about that earlier. That is not the easiest of meetings, but they make it extremely welcoming. What John did was he would say, you have done this and this is awesome, but don't forget about Pathways, this great resource that we have. Don't forget about this with a potential competition, this with a potential entry into that, and other things that they could do. What's more, he motivated from among them by being among them. And we had this moment at the end where we were kind of celebrating their success. And John took them out to lunch. I was supposed to show up for that, but something came up that kept me. And John, faithful to his word as always, was like, I've got this. I'm moving forward with this. Now, here's the amazing thing that I see as a result of this, and then I'll wrap up and turn it back over to John. I know we want to get into some other things. The amazing thing is this club, as I was telling Mark and others before, this club is now doing an amazing thing in our school. So every student takes this business presentation course. This club, this Kelly Club, is hosting office hours by which students in our business presentation class can go pitch their homework, their projects, pass them and get feedback. So this growth and development, if you think about this for a second, is more than a 1-hour club meeting. These are students helping other students in the name of Toastmasters. This is goodwill that will go beyond graduation into our organizations. These are future people leading our clubs. And I was just thinking about that overnight and the ripple effect of all of that. If I had said, you know, John, we're all busy. I'm so busy. If John had said, I'm too busy, there's a lot of things, you know, I don't know these students so well. Maybe I'll just stick to my club meeting, you know, blah, blah, blah. If we had just done that and not stepped forward, that ripple effect would not happen. What's going to happen with that project that happens on Monday? This is an amazing leadership moment. And I just was grateful to watch that I just want to know factor kind of turn into something else. And so I have a lot of salute for how John coached me into this and coached that team, and the metrics show it. But beyond that, these stories are very real. John, I'll turn it back to you, but I had to brag on you just a bit.
Well, I appreciate that, Trent. And it's all about a team effort, though. I'll go that without hesitation. And thank you for your insights into your experience as a club coach along with me for that Kelly Club School of Business. Toastmasters has been an amazing experience. And I like to start out first by saying that Toastmasters for me is like a train with the rails going all around the world. And those rails are communication and leadership. When I signed up for Toastmasters, it was for public speaking. But what I found out, the leadership capacity really is something that I really came assimilated to. And I thank Toastmasters for this opportunity. So in 2015, I was approached by the Good Evening Club with 8 club members, and they said, we're struggling. Can you please help us? And I did. I jumped on board, and I was on that coach, and I said, hey, we're going to go ahead and become a recognizable club. Each club goes through an ebb and flow where sometimes they're good and strong, sometimes they get a little weak. That's what I've learned. The Good Evening Club is now 45 years and been in existence, and they were ready to throw in the towel in 2015. We had a club officer meeting, and we specifically talked out our concerns, and we decided, no, let's not throw in the towel. Let's go ahead and make this happen. It didn't happen, like I said, one person. It happened with a core of people, and that's what made it very enjoyable. Is that people were willing to roll up their sleeves and get involved. And one of the first things that we did, we had an open house. We invited former members. We invited new members that showed an interest. We put an advertisement in the newspaper. So membership is key to club coaching. You have to have a few more members. We always were very good about sending out weekly emails. Weekly emails is a reminder of who has what role, and come to the meeting. We started on time. Through the course of the year, we had a couple of speechathons, and that was a way to incorporate people to work on their educational program, their speeches. And after all, what do they come to Toastmasters for is but to share their voice. And we're thankful for those opportunities. We had speech contests, as Trent was mentioning, and those speech contests inspired other people to do a little bit better. The club speech contest with 3 contestants, and some people weren't only useful in being contestants, but you have to have judges, you have to have the contest master. So it was a team effort, everybody getting involved. And all of a sudden this coagulation was coming together, and we were really feeling a surge forward. And then we always had meeting agendas that help us to have a consistent outlook and as far as where we were going for each week. And I would like to tell you that I was very hands-on in that Good Evening Club, so much so that I joined the club and I was a good morning, good evening, and then I was a part of other clubs. And that was like starting to wear on me a little bit. So it was hard work, it was dedication, it was time and effort. But I said, I'm in it. I'm going to stay the course. We're going to make this happen. And other people around me inspired that energy, and we made it. We got through. And then one other thing that, like Trent was already mentioning, is that office hours. I'm going to just speak about the Kelly School of Business because I was less hands-on there, because even Mark can remember when I gave the presentation, there's a generation gap between what I'm saying and what these students are like. And I gave a presentation, a sales pitch, which I called it, and I used the Abbott and Costello, and I used that baseball theme that they had, who's on first, what's on second, and the students weren't even in tune to that. What's that all about? But they took the pitch anyway, and they offered the opportunity to ask for us to become coaches, and we accepted. We knew where we were going, and they knew what it was in it for them. They didn't want anything to do with pathways. And that was one of the educational points I was counting on. And if I had to, I was going to try to transfer another member to get a club point for education. But when we introduced the contests, then I said, you have to have level 2 done in pathways. All of a sudden they stepped up, and we had 4 points for 4 level 1s. And then we had 4 points for 4 level 2s. And all of a sudden that pathways just took storm, and everybody wanted to be improved speakers, and you can get credit through the Pathways program to do that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some people are already at level 5 in their pathways after just 1 year, 1.5 years. So that Pathways was a great surprise, and that that Kelly School of Business really, not only were they distinguished, and they became 14 strong members by April, but they became presidents distinguished. They blew us all out of the water. And that was a neat surprise. Very organized officers, that worked. But in the other club, in the Good Evening Club, and I'm going to toggle back and forth from these experiences, the Good Evening Club officers were multifaceted. If you were the vice president of membership, you might have done some things in education, or the treasurer really took care of the membership, new members signing on. But the secretary pulled some roles, the sergeant at arms pulled some roles. Everybody, like I said, pulled forth and didn't concern themselves. It's not my job mentality. Everybody did what had to be done to get the job done. So what didn't work? The club success plan, I'll tell you that it's not good for a weak club to try to put some kind of club success plan together, because we only had like 4 members show up that week that we did the club success plan. How are you going to really get a good assessment if you don't have more representation in that program? So I would say probably it'd be recommended that you do a club success plan when you're probably at the top or the zenith of your strength of your club, when you have a good representation of 12 to 15 members who can give you honest feedback. And that way it might give you a surge of energy for moving forward, of improving some things. So it didn't work when we were a struggling club, but I would say the club success plan would be a value to you when you're in the zenith or in a height of good success for your club. Okay, with that, that's probably my experiences. And I want to share also about the resources and the resources that are out there. The Toastmaster website has got a troubleshooting guide. They've got how to build or rebuild Toastmaster clubs. That's a 17-page handbook or manual. And then there's other local clubs. Don't lose sight of the opportunity that you could use Toastmasters from other clubs to come in and be a guest speaker, to come in and give a little bit of surge of energy. Oh, this is what we do in our club. And as an area director at one time, that way I saw that that's the way other people in your building, other potential area directors by becoming more involved in other clubs. And then don't lose the sight of the district club growth director, because as I was mentioned before, Mark Walton, he came in and he was part of the sales pitch. He heard me give that pitch. And at the time he was a district director for Area E, or for Division E, I'm sorry. And he was also good advice is how we can make this happen. And don't forget that it's going to take time and effort. It's not something that you could just put a name on it, but two completely different experiences with the Kelly School of Business, where, yeah, I attended some of the meetings. I didn't attend them all, but in the Good Evening Toastmasters, I attended almost every single one of those meetings, and I actually became a club member to that club, and I am still a club member for the Good Evening Club. So I'll leave it to Trent if he has any closing remarks, or if if anybody wants to ask questions. I know there's some people chatting now.
Sure. The only thing I would add is that culturally, that really on that pathways engagement, the thing that really seemed to work there was getting them into that mode of this. Doing pathways is one way you enter into contests. It's one way that you engage that system. And for them culturally at that school, they're used to a lot of case competitions, and they're used to, competitiveness that frankly got some of them into the seats that they sat in the classroom. And that really, I think, spoke their language. They, like a lot of us, once they got into pathways, they found that this was a really regimented way to kind of maintain your growth and keep moving forward. And I think that was really the moment that hooked them in to that system as a whole. But no, that's all I wanted to add, other than that this was the reward for this was incredible to watch. I can remember, other faculty beforehand thinking, well, this club's defunct and there's nothing going on there, and they had an advisor, et cetera. And now, ironically, I had a newer teacher that said to me the other day, hey, have you heard about this Kelly Toastmasters Club? They're really doing great things. And I was like, yeah, I've seen it a little bit myself. And so they're hearing about it, and that's awesome. Once you get that word of mouth going and some practice, and that literally was a short period of time that turned around. So with that, I think we'd be happy to take questions or other comments.
Thank you, guys. I'll say to Trent, I just want to know, and to John too, is the most dangerous thing that happens when you coach a club and get involved with it that you want to join it, and pretty soon you're a member of too many clubs?
I can answer that, Mark, and I say sincerely yes, because Toastmasters has been a network of great friends, and it's good seeing Lou Begnell, who I've known for years, and he's added that in chat, the links to those resources that I mentioned there. I think that's what we kind of iron sharpens iron type of thing, and I like the fact that we can encourage and build up one another. I went to the Good Morning Club to hear Trent's little spiel about today's presentation yesterday. I haven't been attending the Good Morning Club, and it just brought back floods of memories of good times and good speeches that people gave. So I feel bad not being a part of that club, but Mark, we get too overwhelmed, and right now, my health concerns there, and I haven't been able to be on the good on the online Toastmasters Club, but that's been a real treat. We've been talking about global leadership because Trent's working for his doctorate in that, and that global online Toastmasters Club is an amazing club to be a part of, where you can have meetings with people all around the world. Toastmasters is still on a surge of growth. Let me put this perspective in there. Toastmasters has been around just under 100 years. 2024 makes it 100 years old. And they've been going with 15,000 clubs, as many as 500,000 members. And so we have something to learn from one another. And whether it's in a club that's a little struggling right now, or if it's in a club that's more advanced, there's always something to learn and grow from. And you start to connect with that, and you really grow as a Toastmaster, as a more confident speaker and leader.
And to kind of back up what John is saying here even further, on Friday morning, John and I were visiting beforehand, and I said, I'm kind of struggling in my pathway right now. I got to get that done. And John immediately, being John, jumped in and said, well, if I can help you, let me know what to do, really, stay on that. And that kind of reach out is something that we all kind of struggle to do, but just checking in with each other. How are things going? What are things looking like? And John is absolutely right. This is a huge time that, as awful as this pandemic has been, as just absolutely awful as it has been, this is the only time I can remember where things were reset so wide set for everyone that this meeting on Zoom is exceedingly normal to me right now. Ironically, I am in an all-day teaching conference with some of my colleagues that is with people from all over the state, same day as this. I will later meet with members of my PhD cohort who are all around the globe, same as this. And the irony that this has become in this year and a half, a way that I can see my friend John and my friend Mark, and that is a game changer. We don't have those. And I think people will be leaning into opportunities where they can connect, grow, get used to talking like this, seeing people. I think they'll be doing that as well as in person. They're always going to want that in-person component as well. But we've never, that I recall, had such a big moment where this became so normal. This used to be the thing at a conference that would be like, you could use technology, and people say, ugh. Now we all were forced to, and that kind of reset is a huge opportunity.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I want everybody to look carefully at these two, because as I said, they've done something special and we've just heard about it. You know what the other secret they've done is? They may not have thought about this themselves, but to get a club to distinguished, you have to have the net growth of 5. How many of them are here on the screen tonight or today? 2. Usually when you go club coaching, you can pick up 2 members right away, the club coaches. Let me know before you do that, but usually that's a good head start for you. With that, let's throw the floor open to questions or comments or experiences. Well, then I'll ask one. Who here is thinking about being a club coach in the next year? I am. Christy, let's you and I get together later on. Maybe we can figure out a club we can join when the time comes, and we'll be moving towards it. Christy.
All right, I have a question. What is the difference between a club mentor and a club coach?
Okay, I'm going to take that one because that's an important distinction. A club mentor can be assigned only to a newly formed club, period. There can be 2 for the newly formed club, but the requisite and the narrow hurdle through which the jump has to be made is that newly formed club. Last year in the district, we had 1 newly formed club. For those of you who are thinking distinguished Toastmaster, you've got to be either a club mentor or a club coach. You got to go through that tunnel, one or the other. Club mentor has been largely unavailable. It'll be a little better this year, but not what it would have been in other years. Therefore, club coaching is much more important. John and Trent have pointed out that club coaching is for clubs with 12 or fewer members at the start that grow to distinguished status by the end of the Toastmaster year. Does that answer your question, Christy? Please.
You said that a club coach can be assigned only to a struggling club. Define the struggling club, and is there
Thank you.
numbers with that?
Here's me doing legal descriptions, which trust me, you don't want to trust me on this, but no, I think I've got this right. A club coach can be assigned by the club growth director or the district director if it has 12 or fewer members. The club coach may not be a member of that club at the time that he or she is appointed. However, if the club coach joins the club later on, counts as a new member. Therefore, struggling club is defined as one with 12 or fewer as of July the 1st of the Toastmaster year. And if you want to find out how many a club is counted towards, how many members a club is counted as having, you can go to the Toastmaster website under District Leadership, or Leadership Central rather, and check the dashboard. It's right there in front of you.
Hey, Mark, slight amendment to your statement. It's just 12 or fewer members at the time of the appointment. So they could have started out the year with 20 members as a baseline. But if they find themselves, say, at the second dues renewal period with 12, then they would need to be distinguished for that year. But it's not necessarily on baseline. Now, the net gain of 5 members is based on the baseline. So if they started with 8 members, they would need to get 13. If they started with 20, they're at 12. They have to get back up to 20 to be distinguished for that year.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, and you have illuminated the point I was trying to make. Don't trust me on this. Adele.
Yeah, hi, Mark Walton. I have a question for you. I belong to a club that used to be healthy, but because of COVID, and we are a corporate club. And right now we are directed to work at home, and a lot of people, they only have work computers, and Zoom is banned where we work at because we work for the government. And so that's why our numbers dwindled down from 21 to now. We started at 6, now we gained 2 more members. So at the current time, we have 8 members right now. So my question to you is, do we request from you, being our club growth director, if we need a coach, or since we show up in your report, do you just automatically assign us a coach?
I do not automatically assign you a coach. There is not so great a supply of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be sort of coached out of the underbrush, so to speak. I have my ears open for coaches all the time, and I have fairly strict requirements. They must be either living or breathing or both. And so far, I'm not overrun with club coach volunteers.
All right. So consider yourself notified as of now. Finance and accounting Toastmasters need a coach.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Have you solved your problem with Zoom such that you use perhaps another platform, Meet or?
Well, what we did is we changed our time, because we used to meet during work hours, because we are allowed half hour, and then we sacrifice personal time for half hour. But anyways, we changed our time to now. Used to be in the afternoon. We meet in the evening now from 7 to 8 every second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. We also reduced the number of meetings. It used to be every Tuesday. So that helped a little bit. But now, since especially when we started at 6 members, we started experiencing burnout because the same people do the same role every time we meet. And sometimes, unforeseen events happen, people don't show up, and we struggle for, oh, okay, you're dual hatted tonight. So I just don't want the club members to experience burnout. I wanted them to, have that, as we discussed earlier, that relationship, build that relationship. But if you're experiencing burnout, it's kind of hard to develop that relationship because it becomes a task, as instead of an experience. Instead of an experience, it becomes a task.
Yeah, I think this is what Scott was speaking about in the previous session. If you've got 4 or 5 or 6 members, everybody's doing too much too often.
Right.
So that's why in situations like that, joining even temporarily and on an ad hoc basis with another club that meets at the same time might give you a glimpse of new blood. The district boost program might give you a hint of new blood too. So just things to think about.
Okay.
And I'll keep my ear open for club coaches for you.
Yes,
Okay?
please.
Jane. Jane.
Yeah, I want to preface it to what Abby is happening. We had that same problem for a while. I'm a closed corporate club too, and our meeting is in work hours. We always have to constantly evaluate whether we need to keep that same time frame. What we're going to do is 86 months, we'll do a survey to our members to say, this time's still working for you and so on, because corporate demand shifts in seasonal cycle. Fourth quarter for my company is massively busy. So my membership participation in the meeting had dropped because of that obligation. But come January, when you think about a whole new year, a whole new performance review year and everything, people start signing goals of their own at the new year. So we will be asking our members in January, say, do we still want to meet at this exact same time frame? So we're adapting to the flexibility of the corporate demand as well as our own. I'll be happy to meet with you offline to see what we can do together to support each other on that, because a corporate club that is closed is a whole different animal from a community club and one other thing. And there's a lot of different types of sources you can get members from. For me, for my club, it's the business resource groups. Those people in a big pool of potential members right there. And that's where we get our members from, because these people are already in BRG to become leaders. And then we give them this tool to become better leaders, So,
good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Jane has made a very good point, which I suspect many of us realize, but probably more those of you in corporate settings. Different clubs have different cultures. Trent and John spoke about what is in essence, a university or academic club. That's got to be a whole lot different than a community club, and community clubs are quite a bit different in my limited experience from corporate clubs. I keep learning new stuff about corporate clubs every day. And in fact, Jane just taught me something now that I didn't know. Community clubs, I know about them. But there are different different club cultures, something to keep in mind.
One thing, if I could just add in, I know that struggle to find a time and a season that everyone is not busy. And I have very limited experience with different Toastmaster club meeting times. But I will say this, one thing I have noticed, I'm a member of a club, John spoke about it. They meet on Friday mornings at 7 a.m. And the irony with that time, while it being sounding awfully dreadful with its earliness, ironically, the Kelly Toastmasters meet like at 8 o'clock on Tuesday nights. The irony is with both those meeting times, we have found that folks from all seasons can sometimes find those times to be really convenient and untaken. And I always note that no matter where my many hats or obligations or whatever at, somehow that time seems to work out well. It does on surface appear dreadful that anyone would get up to give a speech at 7 a.m. or stay up late to do one at 8. The irony is it seems to work out better than anything. If I had a midday meeting, I probably would struggle about 90% of the time. But you know, again, your culture is really dependent on all of those things.
Thanks, Trent. Chase, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I guess more so I wanted to have a comment. So during my Toastmaster experience, I mean, just to give some preface, I started with a community club, and then I transitioned to a university club. And then I was a dual member for a university club and a community club. And then now I'm kind of like getting the experience with the corporate club setting as well as the community. I think it really takes some creative brainstorming to look at different ways to where clubs can really get promotion out. Because I'll be honest and candid here, sometimes the promotion side of things isn't as going strong. And so when you talk to people about Toastmasters, they're usually like, what's that? And so, you know, I think in my experience alone, I think leveraging the power of social media or even just any other event platform, such as like Eventbrite, for like, you know, corporate clubs that can't do social media, I think it really helps to, you know, more so build awareness, you know, using Nextdoor. They got these apps called Nextdoor and these other community platforms that are out there that'll really help as far as put information on community meetings or community dashboards.
Okay, thank you, Chase. Chase has brought up something that I want to ask all of you about because I do not have an opinion or much knowledge. But it seems to me that with social media, we have many different channels available to us. But if we are following one channel, we don't see what's in the others. It's like we live in different countries. This morning, at one of our earlier sessions, somebody said, well, we've got to communicate via Instagram. That will get the message across to all of us better. Not me, sorry. I'm Facebook and email. And somebody else suggested LinkedIn. If we didn't have LinkedIn, we wouldn't know what we were doing. What's LinkedIn? I'm joking almost, but only just. Who has some thoughts on that? Because I frankly do not. Scott.
It greatly depends upon the audience you're trying to communicate with and whom you are trying to talk to. If you're looking for members that come from a professional background, LinkedIn is absolutely the place to go. If you're looking for a younger demographic, then TikTok and Instagram are the places to go. And you can link Instagram to Facebook so you can post on one and go to the other as well. If you're looking for people that want to get angry and fight with everyone, go to Twitter. I don't know if that's going to really help your membership, but it might be entertaining for a little while. But it completely depends upon whom you are trying to target, the conversation you want to have, and the result you're looking to acquire. Don't try to go everywhere, but depending upon whom you're trying to get, pick the one where that audience resides. Younger people love TikTok and Instagram. Older people like us love LinkedIn and Facebook. And angry people seem to love Twitter.
Jerry.
I'll concur with just about everything that has been said. I have tried communicating across a variety of platforms, some of which I adapt to readily, others I have not. But for me, consistently, the most reliable way to get information out to my members is a direct email, not necessarily going through the club's free toast web mailer or whatever. I don't know why those tend to be overlooked, but for the most part, direct email. Now, there are a few people that, as Scott just said, not everyone uses something that's readily available, but pick the one that for the culture of your club seems to be the most effective. If it's not direct email, use it, but see if you can work with direct email. There will always be a few people that don't use anything. You just have to pick up that old-fashioned mechanism of, I guess it's not old-fashioned now, but pick up the phone and call them. But sometimes that just has to be done.
Thank you, Jerry. I must confess, I'm on the same page that you are. I like email, and I have to send it from my grandpa box, or excuse me, desktop, if it's to be effective. Mark Mandel.
Hello. So a question on that. So, you know, we've already talked about the fact that people are zoomed out and this ever increasing circle of being home alone. Do you think that is going to change the way we communicate? Because like Scott says, Scott's off on Facebook. I scroll through at high speed now and only really look at stuff that's from my family or, you know, specifics. So, and even at work, I've noticed we've had a shift from email to more blogs and stuff like that. And honestly, I just scroll through those as well. So that the change in times really is going to impact how we communicate. And you're right, Jerry, for an older crowd, for a small group, direct email is right way. If Tom Doherty was on here, he picks up the phone and calls everybody every single week. Sign up for this, sign up for that. So I think we've got to figure out what that's going to look like moving forward.
May I ask John and Trent a question then that follows in with Mark Mandel's comment? Neither one of you appear to me undergraduates or even graduates. You might be a little older, might be, and yet you worked with a crowd of, I believe, graduate students at the Kelly School.
Undergrad.
22, 23 in that range. Did you find any difficulty communicating with them?
John, what do you think?
There was no problem communicating. I went direct email and they were very responsive. And as long as we got that understood right in the very beginning, then I directly communicated with them. But then they could do that Facebook and that LinkedIn and that Twitter and everything amongst themselves. I just went directly to the leadership.
And they're doing blast emails out to their contact list each week. And one thing with students, particularly like college students, in the freshman, sophomore year, generally that's where they start developing the email professionalism of, I need to watch this thing and respond to this thing and be on this thing. By the time it's, you know, sophomore to junior, senior, they're like the rest of us. They recognize that not to check that creates anxiety and missed opportunity, but it takes them a minute to kind of get used to that because, you know, not to commentary in high schools, but there's a little less of that regularly, probably more so in the pandemic.
Jerry?
Subject lines. That for me is one of the most difficult things to get across. I see some nodding heads. I think we've all received emails from somebody where clearly they've picked up an old message, clicked a reply, started their message, which is a new message. It has nothing to do with the old subject line. If we're going to send things out, I have become obsessive about putting in a very relevant subject in the message line, not club business, not just next week's meeting, but something as specific as possible that will catch attention and direct them to the importance of that particular email. And sometimes even when I get a message from someone that says, club question, when I answer it, I'll clarify the content in the subject line of my reply. But subject lines to me are extremely important, not only from the perspective of the sender, but from the perspective of the recipient as well. Have relevant subject lines.
Jerry, you and I can form a choir and we'll sing that. We're closing in towards the end of our time. We're not quite there yet. So Jane, if you have a concise statement.
Yes, regarding to emails, I think that some generations have lost the etiquette of using email. They use email like a conversation opposed to email as a statement, factorial document. And so this may be a great opportunity for Toastmaster International in the virtual concept. How to not just communicate by camera or virtual, but also how to communicate in writing. And so we can teach email etiquette, teach emails of a presentation deck of introducing somebody, special guests, and so on. And those kind of civility is being lost over the time in the years. So this may be another tool that we can teach through Toastmasters.
Thank you for that. Jerry?
Quick comment. I hope you know my problem. I think one thing from the perspective, I know from the perspective of leadership, we have to keep in mind the type of leadership we are addressing. There is a big difference from being a leader in a corporate setting, a military setting, an academic setting. In each of those situations, you have authority which you can demand, and there are consequences for people that do not go along. Toastmasters is a volunteer organization. They don't have to do what we say, and they can leave without a consequence. Being a leader in a volunteer setting is the most difficult type of leadership, and that is one that we need to keep in mind. We come from educational corporate backgrounds and such. We're used to just telling people what to do and expecting most of them to do it. That isn't how it works in Toastmasters. It isn't how it works in volunteer organizations. Keep that mindset.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah.
Lou.
I think sometimes people use volunteer organizations to do the things that they wish they could do in their paid corporate setting. But I think too, there are different expectations between training that may come into a corporate setting. The bar is pretty high on what external training looks like. And I think sometimes when we bring people from the outside who may be Toastmasters members into a club environment, if they're not dressed professionally, if they're not acting professionally, if they make some off-color joke or whatever the case might be that might not comply with the code of conduct within the confines of that company that they're in, it can look bad or reflect badly upon Toastmasters as well. But I think there's also differences between generations as well. So the younger generation may expect that everyone is an expert in graphic design and does not use clip art any longer, or everybody has a Gmail account with WhatsApp or whatever the case might be. And if you're using AOL, they may say, well, okay, that's not something that we need to use. So I think it depends on whether you're a community club, corporate club, understanding what those differences are. So not all of our community clubs are experts in online meeting formats or hybrid meeting formats. And if the expectation is pretty high based on what they've witnessed, then if we're not managing the technology well enough, it may not meet the expectation of that prospective member.
Thank you very much, Lou. Folks, it's as close to 12:30 as it's going to get before I start closing this down. Oh, I just did. So we want to thank Trent and John. They are going to be rewarded with astonishingly valuable online certificates. And our thanks, because the two of them have helped us out today and done something that many of us cannot, and showed us and helped us when for the time that we come to do it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate having you.
So there is more. The fun has only just begun. We are going to be moving from these sessions. So thank you, Trent. Thank you, John. And I'll thank Patty on the other side. We're going to be coming back together. We're going to start a networking session in a few moments called Speed Table Topics. It's wild and wonderful. And then this afternoon, we have at 1 o'clock, Getting into Character. We have the Leadership Outreach Group. Sam and his team will join us. And then we have The Good, the Bad, and the Puns with our very own Mark Walton at 2 o'clock. And then 2:30, our final session for the day. Another fantastic session. That is Tell Me a Story with Mr. Jerry Smith. So much more to come. Thank you, everybody. I am going to open up the breakout room and send everybody over there, and we'll see you again shortly. Okay, stop share, breakout room, and options, close.